Okay guys, welcome back. This is, let's call it part 1 of the Cambrian Funfighter ME109 build. This is what we're building. Don't know quite how much I'm going to refer to the manual just now, as I said in the introduction, which I'll put a link to up here somewhere. I tend to, with this sort of model, fairly simple build, I tend to use the plan more than the instructions, as I tend to do the build sequence slightly differently to what they say. So, making a start, first thing I've done is I've got the plan out. I'm going to start with the fuselage. There's a few things, again on the introduction I said that on the wing there's a bit of damage to it. I need to get myself some hypodermic needles to inject the glue into the leading edges of the wing to strengthen them up. They're not here yet, so I'm going to start on the fuselage. So what have we got? We've got 2 fuselage sides, a whole load of formers. I haven't got them out yet, but the plan calls for these wing seat doublers. So what I'll probably do is start by cutting out this part, this circular part. This is F2, it sits there on the fuselage, but on the, because this is going to be a slope soarer, I'm not going to have a fuel tank in here, but that's where there's going to be a servo in there somewhere. I'm not quite sure yet, but there's going to be a servo in there for the elevator instead of here to get the weight forwards, and the battery is going to sit up in the front as well. So I want to be able to get everything through. So I'm taking out this pre-cut hole that's come like that, pre-cut. I just need to take it all the way through. And same with the firewall. The firewall's had a hole machined into it, but obviously not all the way through. That's for where the fuel tank would sit, for the fuel pipes and everything to go through. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that hole out for the battery leads to go through. So first things first, do all them, dry fit it, and see where we go. So I'll come back to you shortly. Okay, so I've done a dry fit of everything. I've got the plan out the way. Now, all of these formers fit pretty well. You might have seen the rear one, I had to file off or sand down the tab on the outside. That's because when it goes into here, obviously if it's sticking through the other side, it's not going to sit properly because it's hard up against the building board. So it's very slightly shy of flush, which means the side can sit hard up against the board, and the former can sit tight up against the fuselage. Now, this is an old kit. I fully expected it, but as you can see, well, you should be able to see, this is sitting on a flat building board. But the whole, I don't know if you can see that very well, the whole fuselage side is twisted. It's not a problem. This will all be kept square as it's being built. So what I'm going to do is these 2 formers, F3 which sits somewhere there, and F5 which is back here somewhere, they can be put in after the box of the fuselage is built. This one sits on top of, it's got like cutouts in it. This one's, there's going to be a piece of balsa in here for a longeron. That will sit on top of that one, and this one will sit at the back here. Again, it's balsa at the bottom back here. That former sits on the back of that as well. So, one note for those that haven't built much, and those that have built a lot will understand, I've laid these down opposite. Now, most plans, kits call for building, like adding the doublers and things like that onto the fuselage sides. So many times I've seen, I've done it myself, you build 2 of the same hand. So at the minute we've got a right hand one and a left hand one. So this one can be turned over and fitted there, which means all the doublers are still on the inside when it goes into the correct place. Now I'm going to be fitting these doublers probably after the fuselage is together, so it's not a major problem, but it's a tip to remember to build a left and a right hand, and always check that you've got them before putting any glue. So I always tend to do what I've done is now I lay the fuselage sides down and work on one and keep the other one opposite, so I know that I've got an opposite hand. So because this is all twisted, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to weigh them down with a little bit of weight. Never throw out your old batteries from your flight box, always handy for weighing things down. This former is F1, this sits at the front like that. Now what I'm actually going to do is I'm not going to fit that one just now because I want to weigh this down here with another trusty battery. So now everything sits quite nicely. There's still a bit of a raise there, but nothing too much to worry about. So what I'm going to do now is reaching across to my tool rack over here, use some engineer's squares just to square things up while they're drying. Now that one there, I don't know if you could see, but this former is actually sat slightly this way. So once it's got the glue in there, I'm going to push it up, make sure it's sat in the right place, bring the square in, and make sure it's sat against the square, and all nice. That should be pretty good when it dries. And of course I do the same with this side. Make sure it's all pushed up, get it all squared as best it's going to be. So that's how it's going to be. So now all I need to do is put some glue into it. Now glue, a lot of people say, oh, just throw it together with Sino, CA, super glue, whatever you want to call it. Got plenty of that, but I don't like using it. It's quick, yes, but it can be brittle. So on fuselage formers, things like that, I try and use aliphatic resin. Can use PVA white glue. I just find that aliphatic resin sands a lot easier once it's dry. PVA glue, which again I've got here, bog standard PVA glue, works just as well, but you have to be a bit more careful with how much overspill and things like that you get, because to me it seems a bit more rubbery to sand. So I just use this. The other thing I found out, which is where I store it, when there's a gaping great big hole in the end of that, but it doesn't seem to dry in the bottle. It only dries once it comes out the bottle, and it's not as if air can't get into it, because it can. It goes into there, and it should be able to dry in the bottle. But anyway, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to run a pen line down there so I know where the former is going to sit. The same down this side. So we put a little splodge of glue down that pen line, and then a little bit either side of this former, and I'll get a nice good glue joint. And I always hold it the way it's going to go back in, so I've just taken it out that way, hold it that way to go back in. Just a tiny little bit of glue, don't need lots. And then a little bit down there. A little bit down there. Slot it in. Says heat. There we go. And then just shove it up. Make sure it's sitting nicely. Now I've always got scrap pieces of wood laying handy. What I'm doing now is just run a piece of scrap wood down the joint to take out the excess glue and get rid of it. I try, as I've done there, not to get it on the bench, because it means then you've got a lump of glue on the bench, which is going to make it uneven. And then bring the square back in. Right, push it up so it's fully that way. Push it down onto the fuselage side and make sure it's sitting nicely up against there, which it is. Right, same again here. Pen mark. And just move the battery out of the way a bit. Pen mark there, bring the battery back in to hold it all in place. Again, holding it the way I'm going to put it back in. little bit of glue. Again, you don't need much glue. Probably too much. And the phone's ringing. Obviously they don't want to speak to me. Alright, get that back in. Give it a good squidge down and slide up. If you're not sure if it's slid up far enough, pull it back. Make sure it's in the right place, so as you get a positive slide on it, so you can see a gap in there, and slide it up in. Again, same again, get it all squared up, push down, take out the excess glue. Taking out the excess glue means it dries quicker as well. So get the form sort of pushed up that way, push down, there's a square in there. What you can even do is bring the battery right up to it. There we go, one last press down. That should be good to that. So that's it drying, get rid of the glue that I've put on my hand. So, remember as a kid you always used to put it on your hands and always used to peel it off when it was dry. Yeah, I still do that. So, 2 formers in, we'll let that dry. Once they're secure, I'll get F1 in, glued in here. I might well use epoxy on that. For speed, if nothing else, it doesn't need the extra strength. Or I might use the aliphatic resin, it depends on how quickly I want to get on with this. But yeah, we need to wait for it to dry now, and then we'll come back, maybe in the next part, and see where we've got onto. So I'll catch you in a bit.